Hi, everyone. It's Evelyn Ackah from the Ask Canada Immigration Lawyer podcast. I'm so excited today. I have the pleasure of introducing you to John Apuzzo. Hello, John.
Hello, Evelyn. Hi, everybody.
So nice to have you with us. John is an international tax leader and a partner with the accounting firm of MGO, and he is based in the United States. You're in California, right?
Yes, I am
Yes.
physically. Yes.
Lucky man. John is a Canadian originally, and now he lives in the States and he's done a lot of different things. So I want to talk about his background. He has collaborated with clients for over 25 years in public accounting and worked for major large organizations and accounting firms. Some of them we have in common, I think, even before he joined MGO, he had worked at CPA firms in several countries, gaining experience in cross-border taxation strategies, foreign jurisdictions, corporate and family office restructuring, supply chain, treaty analysis, and more. And since I'm a cross-border immigration lawyer, I thought it would be wonderful to have John join us to talk about his background, his firm, MGO, and also to tell us about what he does and how it could benefit some of our cross-border business clients. Hi, John.
Hey, Evelyn.
So, listen, I'm going to start gently with you. Talk about your journey. How did you get into international tax? Who does
Wow,
that?
ah, well, put it this way. You know, I basically started off in Montreal, where I was born and raised out of Italian parents. So
Love
I
Montreal.
now I do have three citizenships, and so I live it every day. But when I first started, I got licensed in Canada. One of my professors said, "Hey, why don't you go get the CPA?" So I got the CPA in the US as well. So I'm licensed on both sides. And you know what? I started with teaching. I started teaching and I taught part-time. In Canada, it's very customary that you teach at night and you practice in the day. And
Wow.
then I sort of said, well, I want to get some US experience in the US. And when I came here to California, it was supposed to be part-time. I ended up staying. I'm still here. I love the weather. But I do come back. I travel to Canada, I travel to Italy annually, and I'm very well traveled. So I love traveling the world. And that's what keeps me interested, just knowing how the rules and just helping people with what is really complex, but
Yes.
not impossible to get around.
Oh, I love that. So you have three citizenships. So you understand the immigration journey. I can imagine.
Oh, yes, I do.
For yours in the US, it must have been, something because we know how hard it is.
Oh,
But Italy,
yep.
was Italy easier?
Italy was easier because I got it by blood, right? Because
Yes.
my dad was I was born before, so with Italian bloodline, so I got that one. It still
Oh,
was a process because it is Italy and the bureaucracy takes forever, but I have it.
I love it. I'm so jealous. So
Yeah.
listen, I want to ask you, tell us a little bit about MGO because it's not a firm that before you I had heard of here in Canada because you aren't in Canada, right? Yet, are you?
No, we're a regional firm in the US. We basically have people in every state. We
Mhm.
don't have offices in every state, but we do have people in every state.
Excellent.
We are the firm was basically we have a large presence in cannabis
Mhm.
and auditing of cannabis. Obviously, if you understand anything about international tax, most countries except for Canada and the US, it's illegal to have
Yeah.
any cannabis. So this is one of the reasons why they brought me on to expand, the business and have less reliance on one particular industry. So
Yeah.
the firm is growing. We're definitely getting more and more service line. And with me being here, the international tax has just exploded in terms of what the offering we can bring. And
Mm.
the lucky part that I have is I've got excellent partners in other areas, like in federal research and development, and we normally collaborate with foreign offices, with foreign firms, so they're not NGO but foreign offices, and we have a nice collaboration to make sure that our clients are well served.
That sounds so great. I think it's a great idea. And I've had some clients that do cannabis, and I can tell you that it is a struggle, finding
Yeah.
It really is. Even crossing the border, even if you work in the business, they're like,
Yeah.
whoa, much less accounting. So I think it's fabulous and that you're growing the business. So listen, what motivated you? I know you told me about how the teacher recommended you did this back in university, but what motivated you, John, to specialize in international tax planning and restructuring, particularly for high net worth individuals and global businesses?
Yeah. So, like I said, I first started out of a teacher that was at McGill University, where my alumni in Montreal told me to get this. And then, so I ended up, I was going for my CPA, now CPA was called Chartered Accountancy before in
Mhm.
Canada. And so I was getting the US. And then what typically happened is, I had to article and audit. So I did my audit hours. I
Mhm.
was teaching the Canadian tax and I was a teacher for Becker CPA review. And so I
Oh.
was doing both. And what kept me interested, to be honest with you, was like the court cases, like especially the court case. I'm like, oh my God, I wish I came up with that idea. And you were reading all of these things and how people get really aggressive with the rules without breaking them. And so that really kept me interested. And to be honest with you, today that I'm well seasoned, what keeps me doing it is the pleasure that I see in helping small, medium-sized businesses because a lot of what I do is was sort of always kept in big four, like the large accounting firm. But by bringing this to this platform, the appreciation that I get from my clients to say, "Oh my God, thank you for the help." It's just a breath of fresh air to say, you know what, you're actually helping people, and that's what keeps me in it. Uh, just getting every day. Of course, the tax court cases are still interesting. And I don't get bored, but it's the people. This
Yeah,
is definitely a people business. And
yes.
although I like the technical aspects of it, I love breaking it down and making it very simple for my clients.
Oh my
And
God, John, I wish I had you when I started my practice because no matter, as you know, you'd probably deal with a lot of professionals and small and medium businesses, but they don't understand anything about, like I went to law school because I don't know math. It's like there's a reason. And most
yeah,
accountants, this is why I thought I really wanted you on. They make things interesting and also bring it down and make sure it's relatable
yeah.
because if I don't understand, I'm just going to trust my accountant. And then if I don't get it, I don't understand what they've done. I can't even explain it if I get audited. You know what I mean? So,
Right, and that's what I pride myself in is to
mhm,
like I tell people, look, you don't have to go get the degrees and all that. You're relying on me. Pick my brain so that you can make an informed decision. And so,
mhm,
it's sort of like when I go to a doctor, I go, you tell me with your knowledge what it is, and I'll decide, the cure and the treatment that suits me. And that's
exactly.
how and people truly appreciate that because they're like, oh, this is not that hard, right? Because
Yeah.
you and the years of teaching really help that because with teaching, you know what, you have a really those students, you know what, the light goes up and that's satisfactory. But with the clients, it's they have that business sense, so they're halfway there. You
Yes.
just have to take them the other half and say, "Hey, with this particular issue, you want here's what I would look at, but also consider the other stuff of your business,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
I sort of partner with them to help them make the better decision for them."
Oh, I love that so much. This is really, really good. So listen, from your experience, what are the most common tax challenges faced by immigrants and businesses operating in Canada and US? Even like when you moved, let's say, take it from a personal perspective, you moved from Canada to the US, and then you have to file in both countries. Like that's the limited level that I know. And then I say, you need John, you need an
Yeah.
accountant, please. What are the most common issues or challenges they might have?
I think most people, like everything else, like when you say, "How does this taste?" We always say the same thing. If you don't know, it tastes like chicken,
Yes.
right? Everything tastes like chicken, and so the issue then you tend to come to a different country, whether it's an American going to Canada or a Canadian coming to the U.S. You think that the system works the same, and that's where I'm like, no, it doesn't. Canada
Mm-mm.
is very congruent, meaning the province will generally follow the Fed, right?
Yes.
It's very rare that a province will misalign.
Yes.
Whereas here in the US, it's I tell my client, welcome to the not so United States of the United States. It's not congruent whatsoever. And you sort of have to be comfortable with speaking on both sides of your mouth. And it's
Hmm.
like sort of like in order to get a lease, you need to get the business license. But in order to get the business license, you need to get the lease. So which comes
Exactly.
first, the chicken or the egg? And
Yes.
we're so you as an American being here for now over 20 plus years, you
Wow.
get used to that. And that's where I have to coach my Canadians. Hey, by the way, this is how it sort of works here.
Hmm.
Start getting comfortable,
Yeah.
start getting fresh. And same thing, vice versa. When an American goes to the US, I go, listen, they're not as legal, right? A handshake does still sort of work,
Yeah.
to a certain extent. It's just the cultural differences. Although we're neighbors, and I happen to
Yes.
be both,
Both. Yeah.
there definitely is cultural differences, and it really shows up in the rules. Like that's what I found interesting in reading the court cases, it says a lot about culture. It says
Interesting.
a lot about how people think and how they go about it. And so, when in Rome, do as the Romans. And so that's what I
Absolutely.
try to get my clients comfortable first and foremost. I go, listen,
Wow.
the technical rules, don't worry about it. You've got people like us that will break our heads for you, but start getting used to, because you have to make decisions as we move along
Oh, I
to
love
make
it.
you and your business successful.
Yeah, and especially if they come and see you, which is what we always say is, oh, before we do anything, if it's an intercompany transfer, whatever, if you're setting up a new business, you need to talk to the accountant first. Before we do anything on immigration, we need to talk to the accountant first. Get your advice,
Yeah.
get your strategy, all of that. And then when you get that, you come and then we'll be happy to do the immigration. Because if you do it wrong on the immigration side, then you have to unravel it all for the
Yeah.
tax side, right? That's a little,
Right.
I know, after my 25 years doing this. Um, so listen, right now, what about changes in tax treaties and cross-border regulations? I mean, I'm not looking for us to get deep into the weeds because I don't know anything, but what are you seeing right now? Or are you feeling anything new and exciting? Now we have a new US president talking tariffs. You must get a lot of people calling you worried about that.
Absolutely. And so the first thing that I tell everybody is, first and foremost, you and your business is the most important, right? That something happens to somebody else, it really won't impact you. So forget about the fluff. Just
Yeah.
worry about you and what the issues are for you. Right
Mhm.
now, obviously, yes, tariffs is what on everybody's mind. But
Mhm.
what people don't realize, tariffs have been around forever. And so countries have used tariffs to sort of negotiate public policy and stuff like this. And what
Mhm.
people have to realize is that the Trump administration did figure out that some countries have used tariff for their benefits,
Yes.
and that from an American perspective, we're paying into their pockets and not vice versa on
Mhm.
an equal basis. So
Mhm.
notice there are tariffs going back and forth, but
Back and
they're
forth.
not equal. And
Yes.
so this is why, the like every country in the world is trying to recoup from the COVID era.
COVID, of course.
And you know what? Like being in California, which is the highest tax state in America, there's only so much more you can go on income tax. So they have to pull different levers. And
Mhm.
what I tell my clients, look, tariffs has to do with customs and duties.
Mhm.
There's general agreements on trade and tariffs.
Mhm.
What you want to do is, if you're in the service industry, probably won't impact you
Won't
very
impact.
much.
That's right.
If you're in clothing, in the garment industry,
Yeah.
they've already done that to a maximum extent. But on certain other items, notice Trump has thrown out a couple of countries saying, "Oh, I have to go get," but they're gonna have to negotiate, right? They're gonna have to negotiate. There might or might not be some retaliation or whatever. But look, stay abreast of the rules and say,
Yes.
"Hey, is there anything happening in my area that will impact me?" So if you're in the technology business, is there any new taxes? Like Canada did a new digital tax, right?
Yeah.
And so, is that anything there? Like Canada also has a relatively new real estate thing. If a foreigner wants to buy in, we're not going
Mm.
to allow you. Italy has counteracted that. So, well, then a Canadian cannot buy it. So, those are the things.
Wow.
So, like, if you're looking to retire in Italy and you want the home, now you're going to have to deal with it. And so
Yeah.
this is what I say. Yes, stay abreast of the rules and try to see how it impacts you, or get a professional that knows that they'll get to know you as the client and say, hey,
Mhm.
these are the ones you should be worried about. Because
Mhm.
everything else, in all honesty, is fluff for you. So there's no
Yeah.
canned answer. It's
Okay.
really, let's get to the bottom of it, and let's get to, like, to me, I like serving my clients, and I do what I do well because I focus on what I do. And I'm
Mhm.
intelligent enough to know, go, now it's time, we need to talk with Evelyn, right? We
Yeah.
need to talk with her, we need to talk with the lawyer and bring her in to sort of get, you want a and that's one thing about the US. It's very specific in one area because it's such a large country that
Yes.
you could specialize in one little code section. Like I remember at one point I was in Big Four. I was doing, one like 965 IH, and that, a
That was
H,
it.
that was it. And so, and because there's enough volume to just focus that way. And so you need to make sure that as a client that you have the right people that will consider all facets of whatever you're dealing with, especially with cross border, because
Mhm.
as we said before, the countries do not think the same. Like for example, with foreign pensions,
Yeah.
if the way the U.S. rules to say, well, you apply these rules as if this was a pension, but
Mhm.
the rules are very complex. Don't think China is going to have the same definition of pension as the U.S. has. So you just have to work and get comfortable, and then like a lot of the stuff is you're gonna have to make a decision to say how much of this is going to be important and
Yeah.
guide you, say, hey, focus here, not there.
Yeah.
I usually like to tell my clients, look, there's an issue there, but let's put it on the parking lot for now so
Yeah.
that they know. And when it becomes a big issue, we can resurface it as needed.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Oh my goodness, such great advice. Um, right now, I was thinking you moved to California. Why would you move to the highest tax state? Besides the weather, there are nicer, warm places too.
Well, because California is the fifth largest economy in the world.
Yes,
So
it
you know
is.
what? Florida is nice, but it's the economy is never, like, put it this way. What was a recession here at the time when I came
Yeah.
was boom in the East Coast of Canada, in
Wow.
Montreal. So I'm like, oh wow, if you're calling this recession. And then you
Yeah.
know what? I practice what I preach. I'm an international tax accountant. If I cannot lower the tax rate for myself, then who else could? And so that tax piece of it was not an issue because I go, okay, I know how to play the game.
It was a
And it
good
helped
balance.
because, yeah, because I studied US tax in Canada and I worked at a big four that started up the US tax in Canada. So I
Mhm.
came with the knowledge. It's not
That's
that I crossed over and got the knowledge.
you
I
already.
came with the knowledge. So I already knew how to play the game. Not so much at the California level, but I
Mhm.
already federal level really well down packed. I
Oh,
did have
wow.
great mentors.
That is so cool. So listen, tell me a little bit about MGO from like what would it be like if one of our clients called you and said, I need you? How do you and your team work with, let's say, a small, medium business? How is the little bit of the process so that we can kind of visualize what it's like? Obviously, not to detail tax, but just how do you bring them on? How do you analyze if they're a fit for you? What kind of clients are better than others for you? Those types of things.
Absolutely. So the first thing that I do is I always have a chit chat, right?
Yeah.
I go, let's meet for about half an hour, 45 minutes, and
Yeah.
let's have a chit chat because to me it's important like I said, I I do I'm good at what I do is because I focus on what I do. So
Mm.
when a client comes in, either through referral or they find me somewhere, I basically start asking questions and say, yes, you know what? Your issues is something that I do.
Mhm.
If it's something like, for instance, if it's more immigration related, I say, you
Mhm.
know what? Why don't you go see Evelyn or someone in her law firm that can help you? Make her take the lead and she'll call me back. So I sort of have relationships with other professionals. And so
Yeah.
to me, I am not doing my job properly if I'm not telling the client, hey, here's who you should ask the lead, and here's why. So
Okay.
that first conversation is that. Now, let's assume that they say, I do decide, yes, you know what, this is the client that I'm going to take, because I could tell you, I'm not going to put my license or my name on
Or
something that I cannot do 150%.
I know.
There's things that do the best you can do and make sure nobody else behind you can do it better. And I
Yeah.
live by that every day. And
Love it.
so if I can't, I'm not gonna set myself up or my client up for failure. It's about, let's get this right. Let's get the right parties, because it's not gonna be one person. I always tell, make your accountant and your lawyers your best friends no matter what. And so after I decide that, I sort of break up the project. And usually I'll start off, especially when it's a consultative type of project, I'll do sort of like a feasibility study. I said,
Mhm.
let me learn more about you. Let me get into the details. And I will come up with a structure on how you should conduct your affairs. But there's never one answer. So I go through about 10, 15 structures in my head. I'll, based on my experience, will narrow it down to the top three, sometimes top four, but I don't like going above that. So then notice I bring it to bite size and I explain to my client, here's the three that I chose. Here is, based on the information you gave me, why I believe this one is better suited for you. We have that discussion and then we move on. It's either, you know what, I've heard enough. I don't
Yeah.
want to do this further, but that's the client that will say it, not me. Or, you know what, I like number two. I like door number two. And so I get into the next phase of the project is, okay, here's where you're at. How do we get to where we propose? And then I outline how we get there. So I'm with them all the step of the way, and they understand, here we're at A, we're gonna get to B. They
Yeah.
might not understand how the sausage is being made,
Yeah.
but they understand that there's a process, and I'm working with my staff and my partners very
Yeah.
diligently to get them there, as smooth as possible. And it's not just me. There's, a lot of times this will be an accountant, a lawyer, another tax professional. It's, you sort of have a team.
A team. Yeah. I
And
think
then
that's
from there, sorry, I was just going to say, from
yeah.
there, after that phase, I become their tax director, right? And so usually with small, medium size or individuals, they're not large enough to have someone like myself full time. So I go,
Mhm.
don't worry about it. Consider me as your fractional tax director. And
Yeah.
the whole goal is, you grow your business. I will help you with the tax issues. And when I get too busy that I can't service you properly, then it's time to get a tax director on board, and I will help them find. And so the funny part, a lot of clients will ask me, why don't you come in,
I
come in
know.
full time?
They
And
want you.
right, it's like, and so it's quite interesting. And sometimes, what, I lose a staff, but that's okay. We're all helping each other, and that's the whole thing. Let's make everybody successful and
Yeah.
get to the next level. So it's just a question of getting the right people at the right time. But I sort of handhold them until I know, listen, you're at a point you can, I'm still there, but you can run on your own now.
Wow, I love that, John. I don't think I've ever heard that before, especially from, a large business like yourself, the idea that you help them, of course, but then it's even you want them to fly. And whether they fly with you or you become more of this maintaining and directing and then finding them replacements, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I think it's incredible. So it says a lot about the business you're in and MGO because we know that the big four historically that's not ever going to be something that would have happened. They just keep you on and on and on and on. But the
Yeah.
idea that you get to a point where if they're already coming to you and they've got all the strategy, now they just need to maintain and then check in every few
Yes.
months, quarterly, once or twice a year to make sure
Yeah.
nothing has changed in the tax laws, right, that affect them.
Right. And sometimes it's just a question of, I help them structure, and then I'll tell my federal tax partner,
Yeah,
take care of them on a daily maintenance area. So
yeah,
it might be like, I'll refer you internally, or sometimes
internally.
you need an international tax maintenance person,
Mhm.
and then we'll just figure out what is best. because their success really is my success, right?
Yeah.
I love to say, oh my God, look, my clients did this, and
Oh,
here's where they got. And so that's really what it's about. It's really a human-based business.
yes.
And you want to rejoice in others' success. That
Of course.
I like to cheer for others.
Oh my God, John, I love this because you bring the Italian hospitality, the passion to tax, and the Canadian, we're so nice, we're so nice. But I
Yeah.
also see in you the cutthroat, aggressive, go get it attitude of an American. So you're all inclusive.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm very fortunate. I'm very, very fortunate because I am who I am
Yeah.
because of the experience I've had. And I can tell you, my partners,
Yeah.
the I grew were all lawyers.
Oh, wow.
And if you look at if you look at my resume,
Yeah,
I actually have a master's of tax, but I went to a law school to get it. My
exactly.
partner at the time had to tell that law school in the US, take this guy, just take him.
Yeah.
And I just got accepted, but they go, look, we cannot give you an LLM because you don't have the law. I go, just give me a master's of tax, and that's what
Yeah.
I got. But
That's
like I could tell, I'm the perfect hybrid, if you will. I've got both. And so it's just a pleasure after all these years to pull on all the resources I have to
Mhm.
help others, right? And say, hey, you want to watch this, you want to be careful of that. And those small things is what your clients appreciate. They go,
Yeah.
oh my God, he's not just doing my taxes. He's telling me,
No.
watch about this, get yourself. And sometimes I don't have the answer, but I go, hey, this is what I would ask the lawyer. Ask
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
or find out that. And then you know what? I'll learn through them. I say, okay, look, this
Exactly.
doesn't work for them, but we get to the right answer. We
Yeah.
eventually get there. And as long as you have a network of people willing to help, it's amazing what you can do. If you give love and passion,
Mm-hmm.
people say the sky is the limit. I go, no, I go, there's a whole universe out there. Go
Besides,
beyond the sky.
go
Exactly.
beyond.
Yeah.
I love it. I have never had a tax conversation that has been so entertaining. Let me tell you, John, especially not with my own people. I was like, I know. So I have to thank you so much for this. It's really brought a real lightness to something that sometimes for some people is very heavy or very stressful. And I
Yeah.
feel like, you, John Apuzzo with MGO, really really embody that sense of passion and knowledge. And I just want to thank you so much, John, for being on our podcast and sharing your knowledge and wisdom. And for people who want to reach out to you, I know we'll put everything in the notes for the podcast, but why don't you tell us how can they get a hold of you if they want to talk to you or any of your colleagues?
Absolutely. You can either send me an email at japuzzo@mgo.com,
Mhm.
or you can just call me on my cell, 949-838-5668. Always a pleasure to help anybody in need.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate you and your time today. And I really am so glad that you're now in my network too. So we'll be sending some business your way. And I want to thank you for your support of our podcast.
Absolutely. And likewise, Evelyn, looking forward to having fun and with our clients and helping everybody succeed.